Hello, can everyone hear me? Please write something into the stage chat if possible.
Ja, ja, funktioniert.
All right. How's the voice quality? I'm sorry, I will just quickly mute my phone and then we'll all move on.
Alles klar.
All right. So it's 9 p.m. I hope everyone who wanted to attend today's conference is present. Hello, dear comrades. I welcome you all to today's event. I'm thoroughly grateful for everyone's appearance. My name is Felix and I'm today's host. A few words on myself. I'm close to turning 18 years old, and although not being a member yet, I'm active in the Organization for the Construction of a Communist Workers' Party of Germany, also known as Arbeitszukunft. I founded this Discord server initially as an attempt to have pluralist Marxist discussions, but as we all collectively have seen, this wouldn't lead us anywhere, so we came to the conclusion that it would be for the best to adopt a strict Marxist-Leninist line on our server, and thus became thoroughly sympathetic to the International Conference of Marxist-Leninist Parties and Organizations, ICMLPO for short. We have a special guest with us today, Alfonso Casal, the National Chair of the American Party of Labor. It was an exact week ago when the user with the name of Pixeldor has suggested us to do an Ask Me Anything event. Everyone having had seen his suggestion came to the conclusion that it would be a great idea, so I've talked to today's special guest in private. Thank you, Mr. Alfonso Casal, for appearing on today's event. Today's event will work the following way. People who had asked their questions in the AMA question channel and had their questions approved will be allowed to request permission to speak. They then can proceed asking their questions and we will all listen as Mr. Casal answers them. I wanted to remind you all of the rules of today's event. Do not harm us with any loud noises or disturb our event otherwise. Doing so will lead to a permanent ban from the server. If you all understand, I would like to proceed with today's event. Dear Mr. Casal, could you please introduce us to yourself? Tell us a bit about your life and work, what you have done in the past, what you're doing right now, and what you plan on doing next in the American Party of Labor. 1 second. I will make you a stage moderator.
Okay, thank you. Can all the comrades hear me?
Yes, I can hear you clearly.
Okay, very good. First of all, let me say thank you to everyone who is in attendance here today. I'm thoroughly honored and humble by your presence here and your interest in what I would have to say and what the APL has to contribute to our cause. I would also especially like to give a tremendous thanks of gratitude and a commendation to the young comrades from Arbeitszukunft. Zukunft. My German pronunciation is not the best.
We'll be grateful.
Okay. But I would like to commend them seriously for putting together this server, for their commitment to this server. I think it's something that is absolutely necessary. I'm sure you all know that in the internet world and in the real world, the voices of Marxist-Leninists need to be raised louder and higher. And this is just one small contribution to that overall voice. So I deeply thank you and I'm very grateful. About myself. So I am presently a college teacher. I teach I'll teach whatever they offer me, actually. But my specialty is I got my degree in modern history. I did my master's and doctoral work on the French Revolution. Someone, I believe, someone asked in the questions, "Am I writing a book? Have I written a book?" The answer is yes and no, and I'll talk about that when the question comes. But it's related to my field of interest. I've been teaching for well, I believe I taught my first class while I was still in graduate school. So since 1993, so I've been doing this for a very long time. I wouldn't do anything else. I love teaching. If I were to win the lottery tomorrow, I'd continue teaching just for pure love of the discipline. I have been with the APL since 2010. Now, the APL was founded in 2008. I had known of this organization's existence, but had no contact with any members in the APL. And it was just quite by accident that I ran into someone that I'm sure you're all familiar with, our dear and beloved comrade, Victor Vaughn, whom you may know from his Espresso Stalinist blog. And just in conversation, oh, I support Enver Hoxha. Oh, do you support Enver Hoxha? So do I. And he invited me to join the APL. And I did, as just a regular comrade. And in 2016, at our National Congress, I was elected to the position of National Chair of the APL. Now, my political history before that, I had, I suppose, been politically conscious and politically aware pretty much all my life. My parents were immigrants from Cuba. They came to the United States from Cuba in the mid-50s. My mother was an organizer and a fundraiser for the 26 July movement. At the time of the victory of the revolution, they were actually planning on returning home and had even acquired a house. But two things happened at the exact same time. The embargo clanged down and I arrived in the world. So essentially we got stuck on this side of the Cold War as opposed to the other side of the Cold War. But the importance of that is that politics was dinner table conversation in my home, and revolutionary politics and what went right and what went wrong was the stuff of everyday talk with my parents and all my relatives. So I took in revolutionary politics together with my mother's milk. Now, I defined myself as a communist by about the age of 15. I looked around for an organization. I'm sure this is a story that's going to be familiar to many of you listening to me today. Looked around for an organization, and of course, there was a Communist Party USA. So I connected with them at first. Didn't have much of an experience one way or the other. I was living in South Florida. They really didn't have much of an organization in South Florida. There wasn't much to do. So I kind of floundered for my time with CPUSA. But I used that period to study and learn and read the classics. Became a very strong supporter of Comrade Stalin, which did not go over well with CPUSA, of course. But then I graduated high school early, and I remember I was sitting in my very first college class at the age of 17. It was a world history class, and it was a huge auditorium class. And the professor was very much a sort of typical American liberal. But there was one point in the class where, and I forget what it was that caused him to say this, but he just said something along the lines of, and now since Mao has died, evidently the center of world revolution is Albania, or so they tell us 5 times a day on Radio Tirana. That's what he said. In my mind, it was like, bing, I got to check these people out. Whoa, I got to find out what's going on here. So I did. And I came in contact with a comrade by the name of Jack Schulman, who became, probably after my own family, the most important figure in my political life. He was my political father. Jack Schulman, at the time, was the conduit for information, literature, and materials from socialist Albania to the United States. So anytime anyone in the US wanted to subscribe to an Albanian periodical or purchase the works of Enver Hoxha or anything coming out of Albania, you went through Jack. And he had his own newsletter that he put out called Albania Report. Well, I connected with Jack. He became my mentor. He became my political guide, my political father, as I said. He had an incredible history himself. He fought in the Spanish Civil War in the Abraham Lincoln Brigade. He was an organizer for the CPUSA in the 40s and 50s in the Deep South, at the time dominated by Jim Crow and the Ku Klux Klan, and gun battles with the Ku Klux Klan, between communists and the Ku Klux Klan. He was there. He later became appointed the aide and secretary to William Z. Foster, the great William Z. Foster, the great American communist William Z. Foster. After Foster died and the Khrushchevite revisionists in the form of Gus Hall took over the party, Jack left, traveled to Albania, traveled to China, lived for a while in China, where he actually helped translate Chinese materials into English. And it was about 1967, 68 that he came to a very interesting conclusion. And it was a similar conclusion that someone else was coming to, and that someone else was the British Marxist-Leninist Bill Bland. That now this conclusion became more refined over time, but what they felt at the time was that Mao was taking China on a left adventurist path. And so in a certain way, both Jack and Bill became Hoxhaists before Hoxha. And they believed that Mao was taking China down a very dangerous and destructive left adventurous path, and that the only true Marxist-Leninist state in the world was Albania. So Jack left China, went to Albania for a while, then came to the United States, returned to the United States, where, as I said, he put out Albania Report and became sort of the main point person for anything from socialist Albania in the US. He himself later connected with Bill Bland, and together, the two of them, Jack and Bill, produced or sponsored a kind of a regrouping, an attempt at a regrouping of anti-revisionist Marxist-Leninists that was known as Alliance Marxist-Leninist, also known as Alliance Marxist-Leninist was the periodical, International Struggle Marxism-Leninism, ISML, was the name of the sort of umbrella. It was kind of a precursor, pre-ICMLPO. ICMLPO wouldn't be founded until the early 90s. And I'm talking now the 70s, 80s, and into the early 90s. And it was thus through Jack that I learned of, never met the man though, Bill Bland and the work that he was doing in the UK. And I became very, very close, and I still consider him one of my dearest friends, with Bill Bland's sort of protege. If I could have the honor of being Jack Schulman's protege, Harry Kumar was Bill Bland's protege, and he was living in Canada. So the two of us were able to meet and work together to produce an American-Canadian version of Alliance Marxist-Leninism. And then, of course, Harry passed away. I'm sorry, Bill passed away, Jack passed away. And Harry and I attempted to sort of continue their work and continue putting out Alliance Marxism-Leninism. But it was really only the two of us. And that was sort of still working with Harry, still trying to put out on our own, really, Alliance Marxism-Leninism, knowing that, oh, wait a minute, there's a new organization just been founded, Keto, the ICMLPO. At the time, we called them the Keto Group. Oh, the Keto Group. And we received an invitation to come and join ICMLPO. But that was the exact moment that I ran into Comrade Victor, and I joined the APL. And now Harry puts out Marxist-Leninist Currents, which I encourage all of you to look it up online, and is a sort of unofficial advisor, as we would say, advisor, friend, comrade to APL. So we've continued. But that's me. That's me, and that's the path that I took that brought me here in front of you today.
Thank you very much. Should I call you Alfonso in front of everyone, or should I call you Mr. Casal? What do you prefer?
Alfonso, please.
Alfonso. All right. Thank you very much for that in-depth talk about your origin story. If you don't mind, I would like to proceed on to the questions. As you may have already noticed, we have set up a separate channel which has been dedicated towards people preparing their questions for today's Ask Me Anything event. And if you don't mind, I would like to proceed with that.
Certainly.
All right, so our first question comes from Comrade Matteo. Is he present? No, it doesn't seem like he's present. All right, so is 28 present with us? It doesn't look like a few of the people who have asked the questions are present to ask it themselves. Let's move on. Is anyone present who has asked a question? Just okay, Hosha is party member number 246. You can request permission to talk. All right. Or I'll just invite you all. You have to accept the invitation I've sent to you. Hosha is party member. You need to press accept. Hello, are you there with us?
Thank you.
All right, thank you. So go on, ask your question.
All right, so my question is here, since nobody else is here. All right, first my question here is, dear Mr. Casal, what are the possibilities of in case of a revolution for certain groups? I mean, should I start with my own first questions, or is it just, you know, sorry about, like, should I just get on with my questions, or ask the first ones, or?
Ask the first question, then please give Alfonso a chance to reply, and then let's move on to your next one.
Oh, all right. So, dear Mr. Casal, what are the possibilities of, in case of revolution, for certain groups of people to ally with fascist counter-revolutionaries? In this case, white supremacists in US and their collaborators being minority group organizations that are anti-communist. Is it possible that we'll experience a similar scenario of World War II in USSR, or not at all?
I'll answer that with a quote from the great French revolutionary Saint-Just. With its enemies, the revolution exchanges lead, not words. We never cooperate with fascists. We never sit on a panel with fascists. The only thing that we say to fascists is, do you prefer to surrender? That's it. Never.
Right. The thing is, though, I asked about counter-revolutionist minority groups that are belong to anti-communist organizations who then ally with other anti-communist organizations, specifically white supremacists, in order to, oppose communism. And I'm talking about specifically, in this case, Nation of Islam, which is a highly reactionary group, despite their advocates for the dismemberment of, the U.S. states, so to say, since they are reactionary.
I see. I see. Um,
Sorry if I wasn't clear.
I think that that would be have to be responded to and answered on a case by case basis. Um, Groups such as Nation of Islam, while they do have a reactionary essence, um, have a very long history of and connection to the African American masses in the United States. So it would be perfectly fine uh, in the context of a general coalition to work with members of Nation of Islam. Expanding that, it would be perfectly fine to work with, say, particular Muslim groups, even though perhaps they have a very strongly religious orientation. The It's a delicate question. It's a delicate question, and one that calls for, I think, a certain finesse. But overall, I would say that it is acceptable and it is possible for Marxist-Leninists to work with such groups, but again, on the basis of real world struggle and concrete situation. So in that case, yes. But in the case of overt fascists and reactionaries, absolutely not.
Oh,
Um,
that might be perhaps true. I agree with. So, if you're finished, I might go on to the next question.
excuse me. It seems like you have rather a lot of questions. Would you mind if we've instead just let everyone have his first question and then move on to the second and third questions of everyone?
Oh, it's a completely fine thing.
Okay.
Don't worry.
So thank you very much. Could you maybe go back to listeners? Thank you. Um, all right. So let's see. Who's up next? Um, is Sia present today? Hello? All right, I'd rather get done with those questions of the people present. All right, Lightning Lord, um, you're invited to talk. Lightning Lord, hello. Sorry, I didn't see. The question is, uh, Alfonso, do you believe there's a threat of revisionism or possible threat of revisionism sometime in the future of the American Party of Labor?
Always, yes. The threat of revisionism is always there. We have to understand and take into account where we are. We are living in the very heart of the imperialist beast. We're living in the country that has the most developed, pervasive, advanced, and dominating capitalist media in the world. We are bombarded on a daily basis with capitalist, imperialist, racist propaganda. It has an effect. It has to. So is the danger of revisionism there? Of course, it's always there. What's the solution? Eternal vigilance. Eternal vigilance and firm ideological education among cadre, firm ideological education of the leadership, and a total commitment to Marxism Leninism as represented by the classics and through the historical experience of the world communist movement. That's how you fight against revisionism in any particular organization, not just the APL. But to directly answer the question, does the threat of revisionism exist? Of course it does. Yes. And it's something we take very, very seriously.
All right, thank you very much. I'd move on to Emerald Popcorn, who has a question as well.
Okay. Sorry if my background is loud. Can you hear me?
Yes. Yes, please.
Okay. Let me find my question again. What does the APL do in terms of local organizing and mutual aid?
I'm glad you asked that. We've been involved in quite a few things. We are right now, as I speak, involved in tenant organizing, tenants' rights organizing in New York. We've been doing similar activities in other cities, but especially New York. We were very, very active in the New York area around tenants' rights. We have also a program that we've done in specific cities. The pandemic did put a major monkey wrench into this program for obvious reasons. But it was called Service to the People. Sometimes we also called it Red Aid, where we would distribute food to the homeless, clothing to the homeless. Basically, it was not just charity, and not just, oh, let's help these poor people. No, it was that, yes, of course. But it was also, okay, this is a way to get out the message loud and clear. Let the people know, and especially counteract anti-communist propaganda by, in concrete words, not concrete words, concrete actions, real life concrete actions. Let people know, you know what? The communists are the good guys. You know, the communists are the ones who help the workers. And here we're showing it. Here we're proving it. As I said, we were very active in that for a few years with that project. The pandemic got in the way, as you can expect. We're hoping to be able to revive it very soon and extend it to other locations throughout the country. We were especially active with this project in the New Jersey area, but we're thinking of expanding it. There's been talk of doing it in the Chicago area, in a couple of different locations in the South and on the West Coast as well. But yes.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much, Alfonso, for elaborating that well-known question. I think you're entirely right in the point. We need to show the workers that we actually stand for them, that we help them. This has actually been addressed in Arbeitszukunft in one of the most recent articles, which was called A Left Scene or Labor Movement, in which the problem of anarchists and left communists organizing their own protests far away from those of trade unions has been addressed. And it has been stated that Lenin already in Left Communism as an infantile disorder has already addressed the problem of communists not working among the masses, but instead just growing into sectarianism. If you don't mind, Taput, you're free to ask the next question. Sorry, I oversaw you when I first went over them. Sorry, I'm just really kind of excited right now, so I didn't see that you wanted someone else to ask the question for you, Lightning Lord. All right.
Sorry for taking a little bit of time. I made sure, because my microphone is not very good, to test it first. The question I want to ask here: what would be the best advice that you can give to New York comrades? What we can do, first of all, to help the cause? What happens many times, people that are new to Marxism see all of those things. They see global warming, they see exploitation. They get mad. They want to do something about it. What would be the best thing you can suggest for that?
I think that the general advice that I would give is get involved in local struggle. There's always something going on. Even if it might not be directly or apparently visible, but there's always something going on. There's always some kind of a struggle around working conditions, student rights, as I said earlier, tenant rights, um, rent control. These are just things that are off the top of my head. Get involved in local struggles. Get involved in what's happening in your community. Get your feet wet in activism. This is the advice that I always give younger comrades, because APL doesn't have, and that's, I suppose, another question that could be addressed. The APL doesn't have at the moment, for lots of reasons, a youth organization. And I often have younger comrades coming to me, oh, I'd love to join the APL, but I'm not 18 yet. What can I do? And what I always say is gain experience. Gain experience. Earn your stripes. Get involved in activism. Get involved in what's happening in your school. Get involved in what's happening in your community. Get a feel for the art of politics. Get a feel for the art of class struggle, because in part it is an art. Learn both practically in terms of concrete activism, but also take this time to learn Marxism-Leninism. Take this time to study the classics. Take this time to maybe form a discussion group, form a study group with your friends or other people that you know that are interested. But the most important thing that I would say to any person who is new, regardless of their age, is find out what's happening in your community, in your circle, in your purview, and get involved in those struggles. That's the best thing you can do. Combat experience, if you want to look at it that way. Get that combat experience. Get that experience in the war that is the class struggle.
Thank you very much. Will do.
Usually we only go by one question per person, but I think that the second question of the Put is of utmost importance. So if it's fine for everyone, I would like to give him the opportunity to ask it as well. Sorry, this won't be the norm for the rest, but I think we have to make an exception in this case.
Yes, the other problem that I experienced in my day-to-day ever since I became class conscious. My country does not have a communist party. The best thing we do have is social democrats that parade as communists. What can we do in order to contribute something to both the local and the global cause of Marxism-Leninism, to organize to improve the life of the workers, if we consider the fact that we don't have either a party or at right now enough communists to create one?
In a situation, if you find yourself in a situation where there is no Marxist-Leninist party or organization in your country, and all that exists are revisionist or social democratic organizations, work with them. Work with them. Because I guarantee you that you're not the only one. You're not the only Marxist-Leninist out there. You're not the only one who's disenchanted with what the revisionists and SOCDEMs are doing. Join, and you will find your comrades. As the crisis of revisionism and the overall crisis of capitalist imperialism deepens and gets worse, and the revisionists have no answers, the true comrades will find each other, irrespective of what party they happen. You gotta find those comrades. And the best way to find those comrades is where they are. So again, get involved in the struggles. And if this means that you're gonna have to possibly join or be around or be in the circle with or work with revisionists, well, the revisionists are out there. That's the real world. We can't ignore them. But as I said, I guarantee you that you will find comrades. Just have to look.
Thank you very much. Looking at it right now, I think I agree in retrospect.
Thank you.
All right, since we're on the topic of revisionism already, I would like to request Red Matter to please join the podium. No, never mind. It seems like the question has already been answered. So let's see who's next. Inquisitor, would you like to ask your question?
Yes, hello.
Hello.
Just a second. All right. So, is there union organizing present in parties today, and are there any unions affiliated with the APL or the ICM PLO?
I could only answer with authority regarding APL. Affiliated with ICMLPO as an international organization, I don't know, but I don't think so. Not as an international. Now, do ICMLPO parties have union activism or even their own mass organizations and union organizations? Absolutely, yes, definitely. But you'd have to look at that at a party by party, country by country basis. For example, the mass organization of the Ecuadorian party, Unidad Popular, Popular Unity. That organization has upwards of 500,000 members. So they are a powerful voice in Ecuador and in popular struggles, people's struggles in Ecuador. Within the United States, APL is not affiliated with any union, let alone do we have any actual party union, but APL members are active in several different unions across the country, in the teachers union, in Teamsters, in service workers unions. So to answer your question, it's yes, we are active in trade union work and union struggles, but we do not have a separate union organization directly connected, affiliated with the party, not yet. But we're still very young.
All right, so the next question is from, I don't know if I can say this on stage. Are they present? Okay, I'm glad they aren't, so I don't have to say the name out in loud, because this is currently getting broadcasted. You can go to AMA questions and see for yourself who I mean. All right, so Exter, are you present with us? Ah, yeah, here you are. So welcome to the podium.
Let me get. Do you think military democracy is possible? And if so, is it desirable?
Could you be a little bit more specific? What do you mean by military? I think I know what you mean, but I'd like to be exact. What do you mean by military democracy?
I'm not 100% well educated on it, but like the concept of like elections of officers and that general system.
Oh, okay. Actually, I thought you were referring to something else.
Well, if so, can you answer that too or something?
Okay, all right. Generally speaking, as a general principle, I would say that military democracy in that sense, the abolition of ranks, the election of officers by troops, I think is very, very positive. I think it creates a strong sense of cohesion, camaraderie, loyalty within the ranks, accountability within the ranks, where historically it has been problematic, has been in questions that would have to deal with military professionalism. Now, I'm not military myself, so I might not have the right terminology, but you'll know what I mean. Like, for example, an artillery officer or someone in charge of an artillery unit would have to a background, for example, in geometry and algebra, if for no other reason than to be able to figure out the rate and angle of fire. So there are some areas where military democracy, I suppose, would have to be modified, because you'd have to be able to give preference to those troops and personnel that had that specialized education. So I think it's a superb idea. It's a revolutionary idea. Certainly, it's been carried forward successfully. I'm thinking specifically of China and Albania. So there's that. The other thing that I thought you were going to say is you're going to ask about a phenomenon that we have often seen in Latin America, especially, which is more often called Praetorian politics, which is, for example, quote unquote, radical or liberal army officers staging a coup and trying to enact reforms. It has happened. There are a few especially noteworthy examples. Well, for example, Hugo Chavez comes from that background. I think it has to be seen on a case-by-case, country-by-country basis. I'll be frank. Ordinarily, I would be very distrustful of that. Just as in another, coming from another angle, I'm very distrustful of Fouquismo and the so-called Foucault theory, the military being the party. I think that could set very, very bad and very dangerous precedents. Not to say that there haven't been examples of, again, left military that are able to enact reforms, but those reforms will only go so far. So I'm very, very hesitant about that. So actually, let me then call that by a more specific name as opposed to what you were asking. Let's call it Praetorian politics. I'm very, very skeptical of that, even though I have seen historical examples where it has had positive consequences. But in terms of your original question, with the proviso that there are moments and situations where a higher level of military training and education might be needed, might be required, I would be all in favor of it.
Thank you for answering my question, comrade.
Certainly.
All right, now we'll get to hear another voice from Germany. Lynn, you're requested to join us on the podium to ask your question. Welcome.
Well, hello there. So my question is, how far can cooperation between a Marxist-Leninist party and non-Marxist parties go?
How far can it go? That would depend. That would depend on very specific and very concrete instances. I mean, one could always point to the alliance that existed between the Bolsheviks and the left SRs. It was crucial in the period of October, but as we all know, that alliance broke down, and the left SRs would not go the full route, and eventually they turned against the Bolsheviks. So how far can it go? That depends. How far, to what extent should it go? Or to what extent Marxist-Leninists should work in alliance with non-Marxist groups or non-Marxist or even revisionist or anarchist organizations. As long as the unity is principle, and as long as the voice of the Marxist-Leninists is not drowned out or self-censored, I would say that I see no problem. We can't shut ourselves off from the world. We can't, and are not going to, fall into the practice of little sects that are sure that they have the divine word and everyone else is damned. And no, we're going to stay pure. No, that's not politics. That's religion. So you have to work with what could be considered unreliable or untrustworthy people or organizations. Understand who these people are going to understand who these organizations are and what they stand for. But keeping that foremost in the mind, as long as the unity is principle, and by that I mean is based on concrete, real-world struggle to achieve a mutually beneficial end, then of course.
Well, okay, then thank you for your answer. And I'm going to listen again now.
All right. Thanks for asking the question. Let's see. Who's present? All right, Min. Would you like to come to the podium and ask your question?
Hello?
Hello.
Can you hear me?
Yes. Very
Oh,
good.
hello. Thank you. Right. Okay. So my question is just general thoughts on urban planning, in particular, how socialists should approach urban planning in the United States. You know, like, should we tear down suburbs? Should we do mass public transit? Things like that.
I can only answer your question in a very general sense, as I'm not trained or active in questions of urban planning. But I would say, especially in the context of the United States, that there's a tremendous amount of work that needs to be done in maintaining infrastructure, in reorganizing cities for the distribution of food and medicine, wiping out the suburbs. It depends on the suburb, I would say. There are a few suburbs I'd like to see wiped out, but not overall. But you know what I mean. But yes, I think that there's a tremendous amount of work to be done and a huge amount of attention that needs to be given. It needs to focus on specific urban centers, what the problems are in those specific urban centers. In the United States, we have a huge problem where African American and communities of color, poor working class communities, are in what has been termed food deserts, that there are no readily accessible supermarkets that have fresh food and produce, and often they have to rely on small grocery stores who are quite often ridiculously overpriced, and the quality of the food is often bad. Food is often at or near expiration or spoilage. So I would say that that is a serious question. Providing the necessary transport, food, healthcare, access to healthcare. So in general, I would say that yes, there's much that needs to be. In specific, well, I don't know yet. We'll see it. We'll see when we get there. We don't have that power yet, but when we do.
Hello, are you still there?
Thank you, comrade.
Alfonso?
Yes.
You just broke off for a second.
Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't know. Well, then let me just quickly reiterate. I think that in the concrete example of the United States, that yes, there is a tremendous amount of work that would need to be done in restructuring the urban milieu in order to provide adequate employment, access to healthcare, access to food, transportation. The American transportation system is notoriously terrible. That would be a very serious and urgent task, but that's a post-revolution task. What we can do now is, well, what was mentioned earlier, work involving mutual aid, involving what in APL we call service to the people, or red aid programs that can help, if only to a small extent. One thing that we have talked about, don't have the wherewithal yet to do this, but open up medical aid, in addition to having red aid in the form of providing food and clothes to the poor and homeless, but providing health care as well. That would be much needed. It was something that the Black Panthers were famous for in the late 60s, early 70s, and there's a pressing need for it. We're not there yet, at least APL isn't, but it's something that we could and should do when the time comes.
All right, if that was a question, Min, can I move you back to the listeners, or will you go by yourself?
Not sure how to move myself. I'm sorry.
Don't worry, I'll do it for you. All right, so Roxas, I hope I pronounced the name correctly. Are you with us? Ah, yeah, here you are. So, welcome to the podium.
Hello, hello.
Hello.
So,
Yes, we can hear you clearly. Thank you.
okay, awesome. So, my question is, what is the best solution for people, Americans, British, anybody really, in a major Western power for trying to expand their party, their local party, their group, their discretion group, how to convince their friends, basically, to question everything they've been told their entire lives, essentially, because there's such an ingrained hatred of socialism, Marxism, whatever you want to call it, by default, without any real questioning. It's just something you're told from birth. Bad, stay away. How do we go about countering this? How do we remove this misconception from their heads, essentially?
Well, I'll tell you something that has been an experience that I've had that I have seen confirmed over and over again. And that is this. You talk to a working person. I don't mean a bourgeois intellectual who might have left, quote unquote, sympathy. I don't mean someone on the internet. I mean a working person. Someone who's holding down a job, working in a factory, working in a store, trying to raise their kids, maybe holding down 2 jobs at the same time, maybe a single parent trying to raise a family. My experience has been you go to actual working people, actual proletarians who are living the class struggle in their everyday life. You could say 100% pure Marxism-Leninism to them. Only don't use that phrase. And they'll be saying, yes, you're right. Yeah, of course. Yeah, that's exactly right. That's what we got to do. Yeah, we got to stand up. We got to do. That's the first in. The first in
Well,
is.
if I can interject with my experience, I do those things, right? But in my area, at least, the people that I tell these things, the people that I tell these plans, they agree. But then it's those people flying Confederate flags or voting for Donald Trump who think that that's how they're going to achieve those ends, who think that that's the way they need to go, who don't really understand the deeper theory, the deeper ties that Trump really, he's not an outsider. He is just the same.
Yeah.
And you cannot explain it to so many of these people. It's so hard to get in that door, is what I'm trying to say, because they don't conceive it as that. It's something entirely different in their head.
The amount of anti-communist propaganda that is drilled into, and let's just stick to Americans, because that's what we have the most knowledge of, our own direct experience. Right. The amount of anti-communist propaganda that has been injected into the general populace from a very early age, including children's cartoons, is so intense and so deep-rooted. It's hard. Oh yeah, it's hard. But no one said this is easy. It is a task that we have to tackle. Now, we can take some consolation in the fact that every single successful revolution Every single socialist society that has ever existed has faced their own version of it. You look at the Soviets, look at the Chinese, look at the Albanians, look at the Cubans. Every single one has had to wage at some point a very firm struggle against backward ideas in the masses. And we have to recognize that. We have to accept that is the situation that we're dealing with. That is the world as is. How do we deal with that? Once again, concrete struggle. Get involved in the actual struggles that people are waging in your area. If they're flying a Confederate flag, but they are a true worker, they are truly part of the working class, they're struggling, they're fighting to feed their families, they're facing the possibility of unemployment, they got miserable working conditions. Unite with them on the basis of the class struggle. You can combat the backward ideas in due course, but you got to establish that relationship first. And the only way to establish that relationship is when they begin to see you as their ally, their friend, their champion, their defender, their leader. And the only way to do that is through concrete, actual struggle.
Thank you. I have one further question. Should
Please.
I just go ahead and ask that now? Okay. So my second question is, the party for the American Party, or the website rather, for the American Party of Labor states that the party is not active in my state. I live in Ohio. How can I still be involved and possibly increase the level of activity here in my state?
Apply. Apply. Actually, I'm not quite sure if we have an Ohio organization. We may just. That website might need to be up. But in any case, that shouldn't stop you or anyone else. We need to grow. Party always needs to grow. And if we are not active in a particular locality, guess what, comrade? You're going to help us establish ourselves in that locality. So
right, I would hope so.
Apply, and let's talk.
Awesome. Thank you very much.
Very
so
welcome.
I can just head on out then.
What's going on? Hello?
Oh, what's happening here? Hold on. I'm sorry, I have my cell phone here and there's a bad weather alert. I'm sorry. Forgive me.
Okay. No problem. So I was just about to ask the next question by Georgia, but before we do that, I wanted to ask you and the rest of the stage, you can tell me in stage chat, if you would like to do a little break for 5 to 10 minutes, since we're approaching our first hour. And I'm just asking, do you want to continue, or would you like a 5-minute break?
I personally could continue, but if comrades want to take a break, that's fine by me as well.
I'm going to post a reaction. Hold on, I'm going to post a message, and please react to the message with a thumbs up or thumbs down if we need a break. All right. So an overwhelming majority of people wants to continue. So I think that will continue. All right.
Very good.
So Georgia. All right. It's I think a rather short question. So please come to the stage. All right. Georgia, are you there? Hello. Okay, never mind.
Oh, hello.
Hello.
Hello, welcome to the stage.
Uh, so my question, very simple one, which is how many languages are you able to speak or communicate at least a decent degree in?
Bueno, le pudiera responder en español. Je peux le répondre dans le français.
Well,
Я умею читать хорошо по-русски, но я не говорю я не говорю. See, now I forgot the word for fluent in Russian, but I can read Russian, but not speak it very fluently. So essentially Spanish and French. And with Spanish and French, I can work my way with Italian and Portuguese.
Okay.
Вы слышитесь, как будто вы могли бы говорить свободно по-русски.
Свободно, that's right, that's right.
Yes, I've learned Russian from my mother, so I've been raised bilingually myself. All right, Georgia, thank you very much for the question. I'd like to move on. Let's see. I'd like to get first done with those people that want to ask the questions themselves. Boo, are you present? All right. Welcome to the stage. I think this will be a rather interesting question, especially to all those edgy teenagers out there. I think we have addressed the problem more than often enough in our Discord server, and I'd like to hear it in. I'm really curious to see what you have to say all over again.
Well, I mean, here's the thing. I was going to just ask the permission to ask my third question, but sure, my first question is still I'm curious about. But basically, what are your thoughts on Juche? And to give a few context, is that for me, it seems like Juche is a highly sort of nationalistic, Korean nationalistic take, and sort of use of socialist ideals for Korean nationalism. It's very idealistic to me, but I want to hear your thoughts on it.
Okay, you're totally correct. You're totally correct. There is a strong nationalistic element in Juche, to such an extent, and I don't know if comrades are aware of this, but in the early 2000s, a major scandal broke out in the United States when it was discovered that the Korean Friendship Association had at that time been taken over by white supremacists. It was unknown to the Koreans, to the DPRK folks. So I don't blame them for that. But it is interesting that these white supremacists felt that they saw in the DPRK National Socialism, that they saw an ethno-state with socialist aspects to it. I think that's interesting. I'm not saying that's right, but I think it's interesting. But those nationalist aspects are there, and it has been pointed out. I think that Juche is a form of revisionism. And if you look at further policies beyond Juche, Songon, the army first policy, and statements that the army is the leading force in society, that's not Marxism-Leninism. I'm not going to use the F word, the other F word, as to what it's resembling, but it resembles a lot more that F word than anything like Marxism-Leninism. And Korean revisionism has been severely critiqued and very well critiqued by Bill Bland, for example. Now, does this mean, though, that we would attack North Korea or that we would join US imperialism in attacking North Korea? Absolutely not. We would defend North Korea and its right to self-determination and even its right to make their own mistakes to the death. But it's not Marxism-Leninism. And I don't think it says anything or provides anything to anyone outside of the DPRK. And certainly it's not, as some of its defenders claim, even some of its defenders claim this, but even the DPRK does not say this, that Juche and Songgong are a higher development of ML.
Yes, yes, I know about that. Like, for example, there was a pamphlet, Socialism is Scientific. It basically admit that Juche is not Marxist, that, it's separate from Marxism.
And it has, as you mentioned, very strong idealist elements.
Yes.
Man is, and the man is the decider, and the human will and human volition is the most important thing. Well, I'm not going to deny the role of will and volition in historical change, but the crucial thing is material conditions and class relations. So again, Juche is not Marxism.
Well, thank you for answering my question. I give the stage to the to my friends here, rest of the comrades. How do I leave? Oh, yeah. Can you move me? I don't know how to do that.
Oh, okay. So I just wanted to let everyone in the stage know that the Espresso Stalinist has made a series on Korean revisionism, and I've posted the link to the series of articles in the chat. If anyone's interested to read more about the topic. All right, so I'm going to proceed to the next question. Let's see. Apathy, would you like to join us to ask your question?
Hello?
Hello.
Thank you. Yeah, I was curious. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
All right, thank you.
Yes, we can hear you.
What's your opinion on Chaz and what can we learn from it?
I'm sorry, my opinion on what?
Chaz, the Capitol Hill Autonomous Zone.
I've never heard of it. I've never heard of it. I'm sorry.
It was oh, well, I guess I can't really ask the question then. It was a.
Well, not necessarily. I mean, tell me what it was in general, if I can.
It was during the Black Lives Matter protests, I believe it was last year.
Yes.
There was a the Capitol Hill area was taken by anarchists for like a week or something. That's all I was really asking.
I think that things like that, and you can, I suppose, extend that to look at phenomena like the Occupy movement some years ago. I think things like that have their place, but as part of an overall strategy of establishing, well, that's a question. It's a question of dual power, isn't it? The question of establishing counter institutions to the state. So I think it does have its place. But if, as happens with the anarchists, that's all you're struggling for, that's your entire goal, it's doomed to failure. But as part of a general program, I'd be all for
it. Thank you. I don't think I have any other questions. I didn't know that he didn't know what Chaz was.
Sorry.
Making fun of it. Yeah, I think that's my only question.
Okay.
All right. So, thank you very much. I'd like to ask the question of a member apparently not currently present by 28. The question goes as follows. What are some good recent examples of APL organizing? What kind of organizing is the APL engaging in specifically? What are the current tasks of the APL in your view?
Our current tasks? Well, that's a huge question. And it's a huge question that encompasses several distinct but related fields. if you were to ask me what's our most immediate and most pressing task, to grow, to expand our presence nationwide. We're still a relatively small party. We're still a relatively young party. There are parts of the country where there is no APL, where we don't have a presence. So one of our primary tasks is growth and expansion, the creation of new party divisions. In terms of ideological tasks, one thing that I think is a very important ideological task that the APL has set for itself is we have to have a better and more profound understanding, because this is something that always keeps coming up. It's something we're always revisiting, and for lots of reasons, we have not come to a very clear conclusion about this. The question of the existence or not of a Black nation within the United States. There are arguments both pro and con. Now, many Marxist-Leninist organizations do adopt the Black nation thesis, and it's concomitant, it's co-related. Again, related but distinct. The Black Belt thesis, that there is a Black nation as such, composed of what would be the 5 southern US states. I say that as an ideological question that is possibly foremost for the APL. It's been hard to get the kind of demographic and population information that would be necessary to make a sound scientific judgment on the Black Belt thesis. If you look, most of the information that's out there and has been offered in support of the Black Belt thesis has been from the 1930s. It's almost a century old, 80 years old, 90 years old. As we all know, as Marxist-Leninists, populations, well, this is just logic, this isn't Marxism-Leninism, but populations shift. And as Marxism-Leninists, we know nations come and go. They flow one into the other. New nations arise. A mixture of peoples creates a new nation. It develops, it grows, it changes, it alters. All that needs to be taken account. And again, that would be one of our main ideological tasks, is dealing with that and really coming to a concrete solution of that question as far as we're concerned as a party. Now, in terms of actual tasks, some of that I've already answered. We are involved in student activism in a number of different locations. We're especially very strong at Rutgers University, where we actually do have an official APL student organization, AMLU, the All Marxist-Leninist Union, at Rutgers University. But we are involved in student activism. We're involved in trade union activism, as I also said before. And I'm wondering if our comrade Ramon is here, because if he were, I'd almost hand over the stage to him, who's been really in the forefront of our work regarding tenants' rights. We've been involved in anti-police violence activity and worked in anti-police violence coalitions, particularly in Chicago. The APL was one of the founding members, together with a lot of other political and mass and party organizations. We were one of the founding members of the National Alliance Against Racist and Political Repression, which is something we're very proud of, and we work very closely with NARPR. So we're doing a lot. We're doing a lot.
Thank you very much, Alfonso, for answering the last question. I would like to move on to Comrade Red Matter. He has asked a question as well.
Hello, Comrade Alfonso. My question is that mental health issues are becoming more common with the progress of capitalism. How should comrades balance between class struggle and their mental health?
Actually, it's an interesting question. And the APL published a piece on that about a year or two ago, and it's something that was very, very well received. It's a question that I don't think gets the attention that it needs from people on the left. And as far as I know, a Marxist analysis of the mental health crisis, particularly in the United States, or rather the crisis in providing mental health services in the context of the United States, is a very, very important and pressing one that I don't think is adequately addressed. In terms of, on a more personal level, we all suffer under. You don't have to be a member of a party to suffer under capitalism. But the fact that if you are a member of a party, you have one resource that others don't. You have your comrades. You have your comrades there for you. Now, obviously, we're treading on very personal and very individual waters, as it were. So I couldn't give a one-size-fits-all answer to that aspect of the question, except to say, rely on your comrades. Because if they really are your comrades, they will be there for you. And the strength that we have as communists is our strength in each other. And that we're not alone. We have our sisters, we have our brothers. They're there for us, and we need to be there for them.
Well, that's very inspiring. Thank you so much.
Not at all.
Thank you very much, Alfonso. That was, as Red Matter already said, really inspiring. And what you just said really means a lot to me. And I think that your last sentences will stick in my head for quite a while. I have another question by Comrade Max, who's sitting physically right next to me. That's why he can't attend the stage by himself and ask the question. So rather, I'll just ask it for him. What is the official communist position on intellectual property, and what is the American Party of Labor's stance on copyright?
It shouldn't exist. It shouldn't exist. Although, let me qualify that. What does one mean by intellectual property? If we're talking about scientific and technological advances, it shouldn't exist. No one owns the earth. No one owns the universe. No one has a patent on the laws of physics. Scientific, medical advances, technological advances belong to the people. Belong to all the people. Now, if you mean intellectual property in the sense of artistic works, et cetera, that becomes a little hazier because I do think that artists do have a right to determine how their intellectual labor is used and by whom. And I've seen examples of comrades who produced something that later gets, for all intents and purposes, stolen by someone else. As a matter of fact, I can give you, why the hell not? Why the hell not? I'll name names. I'll give you a perfect example of this. There was a comrade in APL who wrote an absolutely hilarious satirical piece, which I urge you to look it up because it's online. It's something like 40 helpful tips for anti-communists. Absolutely hilarious. It says things like, blame it all on Stalin, or things like, if you're a conservative, say communists are degenerate. If you're sexually liberated, say communists are prudes. It's absolutely hilarious. That piece has been taken up so many times by blogs, websites, and in one particular case, a rather notorious YouTuber by the name of Jason Unruh just presented that on his YouTube channel. Didn't say one word that he wasn't the author. Never credited it. He did later when he got called on it. He wrote a little thing in his description of the video. But he presented that as though it was his own work and accepted all the applause and all the accolades and all the ego stroke. And because his YouTube channel at that time was monetized, he made money off it. That's a form of exploitation. That's stealing someone's labor and profiting from it. So when it comes to questions of intellectual property rights regarding artistic work, I mean, it becomes a little hazier. And I think that there is an argument that could be made that artists do have the right of ownership over their intellectual product. But again, in terms of science, technology, medical advances, things like that, absolutely not. That belongs to all the people. No one should profit off the laws of physics or the laws of biology.
Thank you very much. So, Commissar of Fitness, are you present in the? All right. Welcome to the stage, please.
Oh, hello. Can you hear me?
Very clearly. Yes.
All right. I was wondering, what are your thoughts on the Albanian cultural revolution as opposed to the Chinese attempt? And what are the most important lessons to be drawn from both of them?
Fantastic question. Excellent question. And it's something that I fear a lot of comrades do not know. A lot of comrades don't even know that there was an Albanian cultural. The huge difference between the two was that the Albanian cultural revolution was directed by the party. The Chinese cultural revolution, rightly or wrongly, and we can have a 4-hour discussion on just that, which I don't propose to do, but the Chinese cultural revolution was directed against the party. Now, again, you could argue there were reasons for that, et cetera, but that's the difference between the two. In the one hand, this cultural revolution really was cultural. It was directed against things like entrenched patriarchy, against entrenched misogyny, against, well, as I mentioned earlier, the holdovers of so many backwards ideas accumulated over centuries in the masses. So it truly was a cultural revolution. Whereas in the Chinese case, and I'm not an expert on Chinese history by any means, but in the Chinese case, that cultural revolution was political. And it was directed against the party, or at least what Mao and Jiang Qing and the late lamented or unlamented Lin Piao would have said, against entrenched privilege and revisionism within the party. And I suppose one could make an argument for that. I'm not saying no, but that is the difference between the two. The Chinese Cultural Revolution also, I think, is freely admitted by anyone, including Mao himself, when he put the brakes on it. It got totally out of control. In many cases, it turned into faction fights between two different groups of Red Guards. Faction fights that actually took almost the coloration of major military maneuvers involving division strength forces. So that's the difference between the two. Is cultural revolution, in a general sense, a positive thing? Absolutely. Is it, in a general sense, a necessary thing? Oh yeah. But again, it's a question of how that cultural revolution is being organized and what is it directed towards and what is it trying to achieve. And again, as I said just a few seconds ago, in the Albanian case, it was truly a cultural revolution that was intended to destroy outmoded and backward and reactionary cultural elements that had been inherited over centuries of feudalism and patriarchy.
All right, thank you very much. That's what I wanted to hear.
In regards to what you said about Jason Unruh, I don't think anyone listening right now really watches or likes his videos anyways, as he openly came out against Enver Hoxha on multiple occasions. So I would like to come back to a few questions stated by people who aren't present with us right now. One of them is by Comrade Matteo. His question is about the ICMLPO's projected moves into Italy and Southern Europe in general, which movements they are in contact with, and as much as possible, what the next steps will be.
Well, there are ICMLPO parties in Spain, and it's a full-fledged party formation, the Communist Party of Spain, ML. There is an ICMLPO affiliated pre-party formation in Italy, Communist Platform. The Albanian Communist Party is affiliated with ICMLPO, as you can imagine, of course. And there is recently the Serbian Revolutionary Union of Labor or League of Labor, forgive me, I didn't get the name quite right, has recently joined ICMLPO. So there is a pre-party formation that's affiliated to ICMLPO in Greece, the Anasyntaxi. So ICMLPO is there in Southern Europe and the Balkans. Is there more work to be done? Naturally, of course. Are there areas or regions or countries that ICMLPO does not yet have a presence in? I would say, in terms of Southern Europe, top of the list would be Portugal. And at one time, there was a strong pro-Enver Portuguese party. I don't know what became of it. It no longer exists for whatever reason. So there's certainly work to be done in Portugal. But in Spain, though, there is a particular question, which is that there are two Hoxhist parties in Spain. The ICMLPO affiliate, the PCEML, and then there's Communist Reconstruction. I am not entirely sure what the reason is for the split or the break, or even if there was a break, but why are there two? As far as I've been able to tell, I think that partially it might have to do with the question of Rojava, if I'm pronouncing that correctly. I always, as a Spanish speaker, I always want to say Rojava. In that Communist Reconstruction did send internationalist fighters to Rojava, for which they were cracked down on severely by the Spanish state. And that's why they don't operate under the name Communist Reconstruction anymore. They have several legal names that they use. I think that quarrel needs to be patched up. I would encourage the comrades of both parties to work out that disagreement. There may be other questions involved. Communist Reconstruction also seems to have taken perhaps a somewhat excessive line regarding things like postmodernism and identity politics. Certainly, as we all know, there is a strong Marxist-Leninist critique to be made of such positions. These are anti-Marxist positions, as we all know. But I think that Communist Reconstruction has become kind of obsessed with it, and the manner in which they have responded to identity politics and postmodernism. I don't want to say, and I honestly, from the bottom of my heart, don't want to see these comrades go down the path of like CPGB-ML in Great Britain, that for all intents and purposes has become a Nazball party. Now, I'm not saying that that's the case with Communist Reconstruction, but the way they're framing their criticisms of identity politics and postmodernism, they need to reorient. They need to critique these things on a Marxist-Leninist basis, and not in a way that has them, at least on the surface, seeming that they're going out of their way to attack LGBTQ plus communities. I don't believe that's their intention. I believe that their purpose is to shake off the influence of identity politics and postmodernism. And I can see where they're coming from, and that's a good thing, but they're not going about it the right way. And like I said, I don't want to see them to fall into that trap. That's so many on the left. APL published a piece about 2 years ago now, called "How Not to Combat Liberalism," where we go into this question. I would encourage anyone who's interested, look at that editorial. There is a Marxist-Leninist critique of liberalism and everything that goes with it. There's also a reactionary critique. And the last thing that we want to do as communists is to find ourselves lying in bed with fascists. So that's something that needs to be done very, very carefully. But yeah, to get back to the general question, there are ICM-LPO presences in Southern Europe and the Balkans at different levels, and different levels of organization and development. So yeah.
I have another question myself. What do you think about the MLKP and AMAP, the two Turkish Stalinist parties, one of which is a member of the ICM-LPO and the other one of the International Coordination of Revolutionary Organizations, I think ICOR?
We are very, very close to AMAP. And we work in total solidarity with AMAP, both on an international level and here within the U.S. And some AMAP comrades are in APL. So our connection with AMAP is very tight. The other group, MLKP, we know of them. We have received some of their publications, some of their communiques. It doesn't go much further than that. From what we hear coming from our comrades in MF, it seems that they have kind of thrown their lot entirely into the Kurdish national struggle, which is perfectly fine. But that they have done so to the exclusion of everything else, and have really kind of focused all their efforts on the Kurdish national struggle. That's a critique that the MF comrades make. I really can't say anything further than that. We know of their existence. We do have some material from them, but the information is rather scanty, and we very much rely on our comrades in MF.
I can tell that, some comrades from Arbeitszukunft who work in close cooperation with MAP, as I'm from the east of Germany, where there's a lot of migrant laborers, especially with Turkish backgrounds. So MAP is very highly represented here, especially in a few mass organizations like the Democratic Confederation of, excuse me, sorry, I was just distracted for a second, like the Confederation of Democratic Labor Associations, also known as DIDIF, and I've got to hear that the MLKP is very highly sectarian in nature, that they refuse to work with mass organizations, and although they're propagating Stalin, that they don't do any practical activity besides that, and that they aren't to be seen anywhere around the whole time of the year except for the 1st of May, where they appear with the banner of Stalin, and except for that, nothing can be seen in terms of practical activities. At least that's what I've heard from Arbeitszukunft comrades in Germany. All right, so I'll go over a few other questions. also by members which aren't currently present. Let's see. A question asked by Ted. Apart from the USSR and Albania, do you think any country successfully built lower phase communism, not just socialist construction, but actually achieving socialism?
Yes. Although it's hard to come up with any sort of a general analysis. I think you'd have to look at it on a country by country basis. Before the arrival of Khrushchevite revisionism, I think that the GDR was on its way to establishing socialism. I think in different degrees, you could see kind of same pattern happening in the countries of people's democracy in Eastern Europe. But again, it would have to be seen on a country by country basis. A general answer to the question would be yes. A more specific question would be, or rather a more specific answer would be yes, but we would also have to take into account at what point the process stopped or even was reversed. And that's going to look different in different countries. In the case of Vietnam, for example, I don't think it ever even progressed to that stage. And that's thanks to the United States and the absolutely monstrous and devastating war that they unleashed on the Vietnamese. But to answer the question again, yes, but has to be seen at what point that process was halted.
All right.
And it was halted pretty much everywhere.
Thank you very much. The same question has been asked by multiple people. What should our Marxist-Leninist stance on things like ongoing Maoist people's wars in the Philippines by the NPA and in India by the Naxalites be? And what attitude should we hold towards these ongoing struggles?
Support. In one word, support. Again, critical support, but support nonetheless. And as I've said so many times in different categories here, different aspects, it has to be seen on a case-by-case basis. There's a difference between the guerrilla struggle as it's developed in the Philippines and the Naxalite movement. They're different. So you'd have to look at the particulars of each struggle. But overall, just as a general principle, critical support. We support anyone who is struggling against imperialism and for liberation on that basis. Anything else beyond that, well, we can discuss. But we support all peoples and all struggles against imperialism and for the liberation of the working.
I think this is a question which you have already addressed in the beginning and wanted to talk about a bit later on. It's a question by Comrade Rudy. Are you currently present? Would you like to ask the question yourself? Here you are. Yes, you're invited to join us.
Well, was I supposed to be here?
Hello again.
No.
There's Rudy. Hi there.
Hi, Comrade Casal. Sorry about that. Is my internet coming in clear?
Very well. Yes, loud and clear.
Okay. I have two questions. One's pretty short that you've mentioned before, and the other one is one that I came up with on the spot. Firstly is, sorry, let me get that one. What should we do about individuals that espouse Stalin and overlook Hoxha, but contradicts themselves as they support revisionism and the cult of personality of Mao and Stalin, and their arguments which are used against us regarding dogmatic revisionism.
What should we do about those folks? It depends. It depends on one very crucial thing, I think. There's a phenomenon I have seen, and we even have our own little slang term in the APL for this. People that we call FDCKs, and if that sounds like another word, it's intentional. FDCKs, and that stands for First Day Commie Kids. But and I'm sure everyone here will know what I'm talking about. But every once in a while, you find these individuals who are really into, almost obsessively, Soviet and Warsaw Pact militaria. They're into weapons. They're into uniforms. You often see them appearing on, chats like this one, dressed up wearing a East German border guards uniform that they got off of eBay. And very often, you get a strong feeling that this is not just a history buff. This isn't just someone with an intellectual interest in military history. Something else is going on here. And these people quite often are always talking about gulags, executions, shoot this person and shoot that person. And the conclusion that I come to is that these people are dangerous. Because what we're seeing here is we're seeing people who have bought into all the anti-communist slander. Only they love. And it's almost like a playing out of revenge fantasies. It's almost like they're using Marxist-Leninist phraseology and Marxist-Leninist imagery, but what really is going on is, well, if you want to be nice about it, maybe in its most harmless way, most harmless sense, cosplay, but maybe in a more serious way, a desire to hurt people, revenge fantasies. My take is these people are potentially very dangerous, and the sooner they can be spotted and weeded out of our movement, the better. The better. Now, in another sense, where you see people who say they uphold Stalin, yet they repeat revisionist positions, or maybe they might be connected with revisionist parties. That's just a question of ideological education and the sort of low level of ideological knowledge that is an overall problem in the American. So how do you deal with these people? Well, education, comradely criticism, maybe encourage them to leave PSL and join the APL, perhaps. Leave CPUSA and join a real communist party, perhaps. But if someone just repeats what they've been told, or the only source of left news that they have is Telesur, which people need to be reminded is the Venezuelan state news media, and that's heavily geared towards 21st century socialism. But their only source is going to be things like Telesur and maybe RT and the like. We need to take that into consideration. We need to take that into consideration, and then it becomes our task to raise them up and educate them and show them, well, you need to look at this, and that's contradictory to that, and that's not quite the experience of Soviet Russia or socialist Albania. So in that case, it's again a question of education. In the other case, though, and I can't stress this enough, those people who are at best LARPers, at worst possibly something more serious and sinister, we need to get them out of our space. They need to be. Go play. Go role play someplace else.
I really respect that sentiment. And my second question is, have you written a book at all? You know.
I'm glad you asked that in my introduction. So it was you who asked that question. In my introduction, when I was talking about my education and intellectual interests, I kind of mentioned, someone asked the question. I am presently working on a book about the political philosophy of Saint-Just, the French revolutionary and one of my great personal heroes. I've been working on this book for many years, but I finally got a publisher. And it's just a question of now of collating and putting it all together. And I hope maybe in a year or two, it'll see the light.
I look forward to possibly owning a copy. Thank you, Comrade Casal. Thank you for this.
Oh, thank you. I'll autograph it for you.
Oh, please.
There's another question by a person currently present. Rowan, I hope I pronounced that name correctly. You can join the stage and ask the question. Or do you want it to be asked for you? All right, thank you. We cannot currently hear you. Can you hear us? Can you tell me in the chat if you want me to ask the question for you? All right, then I'll just go ahead. The question is, what are the weak links of imperialism, so to say, that the ICMLPO might be able to break in the modern age?
That's a very good question. But it's the kind of question that historically becomes apparent after the fact. To directly answer your question, weak link of imperialism and where ICMLPO has been active. Look at Ecuador, and look at the uprising in Ecuador. Was it a year and a half ago, 2 years ago? The PCMLE and its mass organization, Popular Unity, were at the forefront of that struggle, and they shook the Ecuadorian state to its foundation. It did not carry over into a successful seizure of power, but hey, round one. Look at it that way. In a broader sense, as I said, it's the kind of thing that becomes evident after the fact. And what I always like to tell comrades is a certain episode from the life of Lenin that I think illustrates this and a few other things as well. In 1915, note the year, 1915, Lenin spoke at a world conference of socialist youth in Switzerland. And at that conference, he said, "We of the older generation will not live to see the revolution, but you younger comrades." This was Lenin. This was 1950. Nobody knew it was going to happen. No one let's round it off, beginning of World War I. No one in 1914 could have imagined 1970. No one in 1787 could have imagined 1780. So I suppose the lesson to be learned is you have to be prepared and have to be at a level where if the opportunity and the situation and the concrete conditions arise, you can seize it. Easier said than done. You got to get to that level first. But I think that's what needs to happen, because no one knows what's going to happen next year. And as a follow-up to that, as a extension of that, there is this view that you often hear, and you especially hear it from third worldists and Maoist third worldists and people like Mr. Unruh, that there's no revolutionary situation in the first world. The first world is not revolutionary. They have a very mechanistic view of revolution. Revolution is not people running around shooting off guns. Revolution is class struggle. Class struggle is revolution. The revolution is happening right now. The question is, though, deepening and intensifying that class struggle until the moment is reached when the balance of forces is tipped.
Thank you. I think that deserves applause.
Oh.
It would be great if you all could write a clap emoji into the chat to symbolize your agreement. Alfonso, you can look into the stage chat. I think that everyone agrees that what you just said was really great. I think I have to bring up a quote by Lenin, who himself has already said, there are decades where nothing happens, and there are weeks where decades happen.
Oh, thank you. And thank you, Pumphrey, that with the gif of Enver. Thank you. I love that. But thank you, Comrade.
Do you agree with the quote?
Indeed, yes. Absolutely.
All right. I've just seen that a comrade of ours joined, Com Extern. Would you like to join the stage and ask one of your other questions? Your question about the ongoing Maoist People's Wars has already been answered. Alfonso has said, if I'm allowed to say so, that we should support them. You can feel free to join the stage and ask one of your other questions. Welcome.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, very well. Thank you.
Yes, we can hear you very well.
My other question was, where do you think a revolutionary situation is most likely to happen, and in approximately how much time do you see that happening?
Well, in the APL, we're ready to move into the White House tomorrow. Oh, come on, that was a joke. I can't hear laughter, if any laughter. Is there a laughed icon? That's so hard to say. That's so hard. And it ties into what I said earlier, a few minutes ago. Sometimes that becomes most evident after the fact. It's after something erupts that we say, and these were the factors that led to it, but it's hard to see at the time. I would look at, if I had to just, in the most casual way, look around the world to where I see there is high potential. I would say India. I would say the Philippines. I would say specific hotspots in Latin America. I already mentioned the example of Ecuador. The Ecuadorian state cannot hold up a second repeat of what happened, I don't think, of what happened 2 years ago. And as I said, round one, that was round one, gearing up for round two. I think that wherever you can see high levels of mass discontent, the potential is there. The potential is there in South Africa, for example. Let's see how it plays out. The thing that we as Marxist-Leninists need to remember is we're in it for the long haul. As Comrade Felix pointed out with the quote from Lenin, there could be moments where decades of change happen in a day. And there could be moments where you have to be prepared to be in it for decades worth of struggle. But if we go into it with the mentality that we're in this for the long haul, for the prolonged and protracted struggle, that's the best way. And that's the best way to at least begin to lay the foundation of being prepared so that when a situation does erupt, we're able to take advantage of it and seize the day.
All right. Comixtan, would you mind if we move on to the questions by the others, since we're trying to make as many questions by as many people possible heard?
But I have one more question that I would like to ask, if that's okay.
Okay, if it's important, then go ahead.
I want to ask if you have an opinion on, and I will probably pronounce this wrong, Mehmet Sehu, whether or not you think he was guilty of anything noteworthy.
I think a lot of what was directly involved there has not yet, maybe never will, see the light of day. I know that Nejmiye Hoxha herself later said this was the worst betrayal of all. I remember at the time when that happened, Comrade Jack Schulman told me I could see this coming. There were things that Shehu did, positions that Shehu held. For example, he was really wavering at the time of the break with Yugoslavia. There were just some moments there that didn't quite fit. So, if you were to ask me as a historian, would I say that the charges against Mehmet Shehu were absolutely true and proven? I would have to say, as a historian, pass for the moment. We don't have enough information. If you were to ask me as an individual or as a comrade, do I believe that there is strong foundation for these accusations? I would say yes.
Thank you for answering.
Not at all, not at all. But let me emphasize, again, it's a question of personal belief versus established fact. Established fact, we don't have all the information. Personal belief, yeah, I think so.
All right, so has that been it? Can you go back to the listeners, or do you have anything else?
No, that's it. Thank you.
Thank you very much. All right, so let's see. There's a question by Comrade Pumphy, who I don't think has had the opportunity to ask anything yet. Please come to the stage.
Hello.
Hello.
So my question was, what are your thoughts on Ho Chi Minh?
Very positive. I know that he took a wavering position at the time of the 20th Party Congress, but I will say that a lot of people did. And the 20th Party Congress of the CPSU caught a lot of people by surprise, and it was particularly nasty and it was particularly vicious in the sense that here you had a lot of sincere and dedicated and devoted comrades who basically took everything that came out of the Soviet Union as gospel. But now that very same Soviet Union is saying, oh, Stalin was a tyrant, Stalin was a monster. And they're what? Huh? And it wrecked confusion and wrecked the world communist movement. One of my favorite lines, and it was from Grover Fuhr, who said, no, it wasn't Grover Fuhr, forgive me. It was Michael Parenti, forgive me. Michael Parenti, who said that, and you know what? I got to correct myself again. I need some more coffee, comrades. No, it wasn't Michael Parenti. It was Eric Hobsbawm, the great British Marxist historian, who said that the October Revolution created a world communist movement. Khrushchev destroyed. Khrushchev's secret speech destroyed the world communist movement. How this relates to Ho Chi Minh? Yeah, at the time of the 20th Congress, he wavered, he hesitated. Do I blame him for that? Not necessarily. Not necessarily. But in terms of a general impression of Ho Chi Minh, a devoted Marxist-Leninist, superior revolutionary, and anti-imperialist. He was Enver Hoxha's old roommate, so you got to grant that. And socialist Albania stood by democratic Vietnam through thick and thin, and you can't ask for a better endorsement than that.
Okay, thank you.
All right. The Ask Me Anything event has been going on for exactly 2 hours now. If there's anything really, really urgent and a question that needs to be answered, then please tell me in the stage chat and ping me if possibly. Otherwise, I would like to ask one more question for myself and afterwards have a short closing speech. Pom can go back to the listeners now. All right, so one last question is about Harry Haywood. I've seen on the social media and on the webpage of the American Party of Labor that you have advertised Harry Haywood's book Black Bolshevik, as far as I know. And what do you think about Harry Haywood having had turned Maoist and having had co-founded the new communist movement?
Harry Haywood, I think in many ways was an exemplary comrade. In many ways was an exemplary communist. I think that he broke with the CPUSA when the time was correct to break with the CPUSA. He endorsed Maoism, or what appeared to be Maoism, at the time when it was not clear what the problems were that were happening within China. So I absolutely do not blame him for it. Where I do criticize him is towards the end of his life, as part of one particular wing, not the whole movement, but one particular faction, if you will, one particular wing of the new communist movement, came kind of full circle back to endorsing the Soviet Union and saying that the Soviet Union, while it had problems, was not social imperialist, was still socialist. That we criticize. That was a major mistake. But something that the APL, we always try to make very, very clear is Marx, Engels, Lenin, Stalin, Enver, and anyone else you might want to throw into this. Che Guevara, Ho Chi Minh, anyone else you might want to throw in. They were human beings. Human beings make mistakes. And our doctrine is not infallible sacred texts. Our heroes are not God-given prophets who cannot be criticized. No, we leave that to the religious fanatics. As communists, as Marxist-Leninists, and as scientists, we recognize human beings make errors. And because someone has a little stumble over here, it does not invalidate their entire life. We have to look at the totality of what they achieved in their life and in their revolutionary career. And in the case of Harry Haywood, and you could say similar things about Che Guevara or Ho Chi Minh. Well, yeah, they made mistakes, but overall, what was their contribution? And overall, their contribution was resoundingly positive.
Yes, I have to agree. I've personally gotten myself the book called The Black Nation, the translation, the German translation in German, and I've read the first 50 or 60 pages 2 days ago. I didn't get to read a lot today because of the preparation to the Ask Me Anything, and I have to say that I'm very thoroughly impressed by the ideas brought forward by Comrade Harry Hayward, and I have to agree, some people make mistakes, but their overall contributions are what outweigh them. So, sorry, I overlooked and I didn't see two more comrades who didn't have their questions answered yet. If you don't have any problems, I would like to invite IH3 and Red Emma in that order.
Can you all hear me?
Yes, clearly.
Okay. So my question is very quick. Does the APL have any contact with people on the reservations for Indigenous peoples across the USA?
No. No. In all honesty, directly answer your question, no. No. Remember, we're, pardon me, we're a small party. In many ways, we're just starting. Even though the APL was officially founded in 2008, it really didn't take its present form. The APL that you know didn't come into existence until 2016. So we're just getting started. There are huge areas where we do not have a presence, and we need to, and that's one of them. So to answer your question directly, alas, not. To expand on your question, we need to.
All right. So, Red Emma, are you in the voice call right now? If so, can you make a request? Ah, they are. Sorry, I just had to find you.
Hi, hello.
Hello.
Okay, hi. So my main questions, since two of them are related, is what are your criticisms of the religious repression in the Soviet Union and Albania? Or if things were overdone, what was the context that was missing that would like help clarify why they would take any like harsh stances against religious practice? And then as an expansion of that, what are your opinions of liberation theory and Christian socialism?
Okay, let me answer your question in reverse order. In terms of liberation theology, whether it be Christian or Muslim, although I'm not sure it calls itself by that name, but you know what I mean. We would welcome it. We welcome it and support it. I don't care if someone believes in Jesus or Yahweh or Allah, or whether they believe in Krishna or whatever. If they fight for the liberation of the people, they fight for the freedom of the oppressed and the working class, they're my comrades. More specifically, but now there is the understanding that, yeah, we are Marxist-Leninists, we are materialists, we are atheists. But will we unite with revolutionary-minded people who are religious? Of course, absolutely. Yes. In terms of the specific examples of the Soviet Union and Albania, there's two different things, two different situations. In general, though, they both had the question, they both faced the question and the problem of, okay, how do we advance a materialist scientific worldview? Do we allow religious organizations to continue to propagate and promulgate? How do you deal with that? Well, the solution is, and this was both used by the Soviet Union and by Albania and other countries as well, and I think is the correct Marxist-Leninist stance. Religion is a private matter. You believe what you want to believe. If you want to believe in a supreme being or the flying spaghetti monster, more power to you. Private matter, not the party's concern. But when we're talking about education, when we're talking about what is taught in the schools, when we're talking about scientific and medical advance, that's where we draw the line. That's where we draw the line. And we will not accept things like, for example, in the United States, we will not accept that things such as stem cell research, which has so much potential to even cure human disease, the potential exists. If you're trying to think of what the proper internal organ is, the potential exists. We could grow you a new pancreas using stem cells. The potential exists. We could grow you a new lung, a new kidney. And if someone is going to stop that or try to stop that because they believe that that's not what Yahweh wants or what Jesus wants, allow me to forgive me and allow me to speak clearly. Fuck that and fuck you. We're not going to allow that. We're not going to let superstition stop scientific progress and the advancement of the people. Now, if in private you want to believe those things, fine, go ahead. We don't. In the case of Albania, though, religion was being used as a cover for counter-revolutionary activity. And the Catholic Church, which had strong ties to Italian fascism during the war, and was active in counter-revolutionary attempts to overthrow the socialist state in the 1950s. A lot of people don't know that there was not one, not two, but about 3 Albanian quote-unquote Bay of Pigs. The last one happened around 1980. A lot of people don't know that. So in that context, where religion is being used as a cover for hostile, anti-revolutionary, counter-revolutionary actions, thoroughly justified in shutting that.
In all that, I fully agree. Thank you for answering.
Not at all. Thank you, Conrad.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you very much for the question, Red Emma. Something else came to my mind, Comrade Alfonso. Hold on. I shouldn't forget the another question. Another comrade asked me to please ask you the following. Oh, hold on. Do you want to come to the stage yourself? Where was he again? Who asked the question about the United Front? Could you please request reading permissions again? Sorry, speaking permissions. Hello? All right, so then I'll ask for myself. What is the APL stance on the United Front and what are your personal thoughts?
Okay, thank you for that question. Let me start off, though, by distinguishing 2 things, which sometimes get muddled in people's minds. The United Front versus the Popular Front. Those are 2 different things. Related, but distinct. A Popular Front, I don't want to simplify it too much, but it's basically unity of the left. So a united effort on the part of left forces to combat the rise of fascism. United Front is uniting with any anti-fascists across the political spectrum. So in historical practice, United Front means you unite with Churchill. United Front means you could end up uniting with monarchists against a common enemy. So very different different in essence from a popular front. In specific concrete instance, I think popular front is very possible in the United States at this moment. And we certainly, in the APL, certainly have worked in popular front type activities in coalitions with other left organizations in all manner of areas and fields of struggle. So that's not even a question. We do it. Now, a united front, I don't know. That would depend. Are there really, truly anti-fascist elements within the Democratic Party or even the Republican? That's the big question for United Front. I don't think there are. I could be wrong. This could change very rapidly. But I think 4 years of Trumpism and seeing the response of both the Democratic Party and the supposedly anti-Trump elements of the Republican Party, I don't think there's anything there to go in terms of a united. Now, again, I could be wrong. This could change. But as I'm seeing things now, I don't think so. Would I be opposed in principle? No, absolutely not. If the correct situation and the correct context arose, then definitely we would unite with all anti-fascists, regardless of where they're coming. We can settle those questions later. The important task now is to destroy and defeat and destroy fascism. But again, that's very general. In the specific American case, I don't see it. I don't see a united front happening anytime soon. Popular front? Oh yeah, very much so.
All right. Thank you very much, Comrade Alfonso. I don't think that there's any more questions left. I think all of them have been answered. I'm really grateful that you have been present today. Hold on. No, we don't have any more time. I apologize. I wanted to ask you, do you have any closing words for today's event? Is there anything you
I'd
would
like
like to
to
add to
just,
the audience?
I'd like to say thank you to everyone who took time out of their day to participate in this event. It's very humbling, very gratifying. I hope that I was able to answer your questions to the best of my ability. I hope I was able to give you a good handle, a good idea of who the APL is, what we stand for, how we organize, what our principles are. And thank you for the applause. That means a lot. That really means a lot. It
Everyone,
makes me
please
feel
type
good.
an
Thank you
applause
so
into
much.
the chat.
Yeah.
I will leave that as well.
And then my final thought is I'm so happy to be here. This was fun. It was fun. And I look forward to future events like this where I can be part of the audience. So Comrade Felix, comrades of this server, let's have some more of these things.
Thank you very much, Comrade Alfonso, and thanks for the kind words. Are you done, or can I say something?
Yes, please, go ahead.
I thoroughly enjoyed today's event. I really appreciate quite the amount of member growth which we have experienced, as I think that there's a lot of comrades around the globe which are certainly interested in Marxism-Leninism, and I'm certainly looking forward towards getting them connected with the international Marxist-Leninist movements by these kinds of events. I wanted to inform everyone, we will, this Friday, we will start a Marxist-Leninist study circle on the server, in which we will start reading Wage, Labor and Capital by Karl Marx. I will still set up a few more preparations, and it will start on 18 o'clock Central European Time and will last for appropriately 90 minutes. I am really grateful. I hope to be able to hold these kinds of events in the future as well, maybe from chairmen of other parties from the ICMLPO around the globe. I will try to get the chairman of Arbeit Zukunft, whose name is Diethard Möller, here on as well. He has been chairman of the KPDML, whom you may already have heard of. During the 80s, he was a close comrade of Ernst Aust, who himself was a very close ally and comrade with Enver Hoxha, as they had multiple meetings in the past. And yes, I'll hope to be able to expand this, to hold the study circle, possibly with the most of success, and hopefully, most of all, this event has encouraged people to actually get active, to organize in real life in any kinds of events, and just to go collect practice, and if possible, also join the American Party of Labor. I think that your presence on the server is really encouraging for young comrades around the globe to get in touch with the ICMLPO, with the American Party of Labor, as it's not very common to see a party chairman from any party and to just join a random Discord server and encourage young comrades to get active in real life. So, Comrade Alfonso, I think I speak in everyone's name when I say that I'm thoroughly grateful and that we're really happy to have you here. And you have my eternal gratitude, as you have really made my day with today's event. I was really excited and I was really afraid that some things might go wrong, that we might actually have to deal with raiders and the likewise things. But I have given you the Banjutsu self-defense role, which you maybe already have seen. So yeah, they were my closing words. If anyone wants to say anything, they can request speaking permissions. And if there's no one who wants to say, oh, all right, 1 second. There were two people. All right, you're both welcome to join.
Since Hochi's party member raised his hand for me, he should go first.
Oh, all right. So anyway, what I wanted to say was nothing much, especially in regards to this event. So he will no longer ask any questions. But I wanted to suggest one thing. Once we close this event, will there perhaps be a possibility that you will perhaps have a special podcast in which you will answer the remaining questions that left unanswered this tonight's evening? That would be all, товарищи.
Okay, I'd love to.
Oh, that's great to hear. That's
It's possible to repeat this kind of event, or to just invite Comrade Alfonso to join us maybe next week, if nobody has to say anything against it.
I mean, that's great, though in general I was just suggesting about special podcasts in which you will just answer the questions that left unanswered in the previous streams. So, but it's nothing bad. Overall, I think we shall see you all later. До свидания, товарищи.
До свидания.
До свидания.
Alright, so is it my turn now?
Yes, it's your turn.
Alright, thank you. Great event, Mr. Alfonso. Really loved it. I appreciate you being here. This isn't so much a question, but it's something theoretical about imperialism that initially I was going to ask, but then I thought it's best I go over this more deeper with you some other time. So, like, I know I might be asking for a lot of you, but is there, any way for me to discuss this question of mine regarding imperialism with you more directly?
Certainly, of course. You can always direct message me.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's sort of a discourse I was a part of that started out with this like group in Russia. They call themselves Ledokol, where they say that imperialism, that Lenin was wrong about imperialism being the last stage of capitalism, and that we have advanced to a newer stage, and that sort of got me into more, its larger discourse about differing opinions about that.
Well, let me tell you something. And I think this came up on this server a few days ago, and I don't remember what context it was. I think it was in the context of ID Paul or postmodernism or something like that. But I said, and this is something I very strongly believe, that as Marxist-Leninists, we are scientists. And as scientists, we don't just reject a new theory because it's new. Not at all. Someone presents a new theory, we examine it, we test it, we see what works, we see what doesn't work. And if there are elements of that new theory that work, that fit, we absorb it. Those elements that don't, we reject, we discard. So I'd love to see their arguments. Let's see what they have to say.
Yeah, I participate a lot in these arguments. I've worked a lot on this. I have a lot to share. So I will share them with you probably tomorrow, sir, so I could give your opinion on this.
I'd love to see it. Thank you. Thank you.
Yes, thank you for being here. Thank you for the great event.
All right. So thanks a lot for the feedback. All right. I don't think there's anyone who wants to say anything else. So yes, Comrade Alfonso, I hope you have felt welcome on our server and have made yourself familiar with everyone. I'm really glad to have you here, and especially to the audience who are watching us both on YouTube, as this is currently getting live streamed. And yes, thanks a lot to the audience. Thanks to you. A great thanks to you, Comrade Alfonso. And a special thanks goes to the other comrades from the server team who have been working tirelessly day and night to protect the event from getting raided by a multitude of fascists and other kinds of raiders. A great thanks goes out to Taput, who, besides me, probably has done the most things for the server. He has been helping us in testing out all of the technical functions, thanks to Comrade Maximizer, who has provided me with his microphone and his headset for today's event. Otherwise, I wouldn't be able to participate. Thanks a lot to Cynthia for live streaming the current event and helping us with setting up the technicalities. Thanks a lot to Red Matter, Rudy, Exter, Gorizny Brave, and thanks a lot to everyone else, also those whose name I forgot to mention, but those were the people who, in my opinion, definitely deserved honorary mention. Thanks a lot to Rudy as well, and to Lynn, as these are the comrades whom I work with, both online and in real life, and I hope towards cooperatively working in our goal for Marxism-Leninism. Thanks a lot, everyone, and I would like to close the stage. If you have anything to add, then... thanks, Taput. Yeah, you can go ahead. Don't worry, I'm done. Taput, you've joined the...
Before we forget, thanks a lot to Felix too for organizing this entire server and being such a phenomenal host. I think he earned a clap in the chat too.
Thank you very much. You're making me blush. I don't think I've done that much of a great job. I've been kind of excited since I'm hosting such an event for the first time, but Alfonso, what do you think? Did I do an okay job? Did I perform terribly, bad, or how was it?
You did a wonderful job, and I think everyone here recognizes that. You did a great job. You all did. This was superb. It was wonderful, spectacular. I'm so happy I was here, so excited here. And I got to tell you something, because comrades from APL have asked me, so how were you greeted at the Unity and Struggle Discord? And I said, they make me feel like a Beatle. So if that isn't too boomer a reference. I'm sorry?
I've said, yeah, I remember that. That was nice that you
Yeah,
told
it
me.
makes me feel like a Beatle. So thank you.
All right. So thanks a lot again for coming. As we have gone over the time limit for around 30 minutes by now, I would like to close today's events off. And thanks a lot for coming. See you all on Friday. If you want to join the study circle for wage, labor, and capital, you can do so while going to the role menu. Thanks again to Comrade Apl for setting this up. Alfonso, will you be present with our study circle on wage, labor, and capital?
I'll try to be. I have to see how my teaching load is, but I'll try to be.
That would be awesome. I think that everyone would agree that it would be a great honor to have such an experienced and well-knowledge comrade like you, Dan. It would certainly give a lot of comrades the motivation to join it as well and help us get things organized. I really appreciate it if adult comrades like you help us teenagers and young people from across the world out and organizing and getting their feet on the ground with organizing Marxist-Leninist events. The revisionists in Germany did not manage to do such a thing. Neither the people at the Socialist German Workers' Youth, neither those people at the German Communist Party. So, goodbye, everyone. I hope those were some nice closing words. The stage is now ended.
All right.
Goodbye.